Welcome, everybody, and I hope everyone's having a wonderful evening. And hello, Miss Cindy D. I see you're already here. So, what is going to happen tonight? I got a special guest. He will be back here in a little bit, but we are going to have some fun. I found a video that is quite interesting to me. It is quite interesting to think about the question that I asked with this. Could the United States actually win a war against the rest of the world? Now, that is a question most people would not think of, but something tells me we're going to get into this. We're going to find out, are we really a part of all the stuff? And to everyone watching, there are some links on my channel, on the Angry Conservative channel, and the special guest is here with us. Well, Mr. Chris, welcome.
You know, I'm used to saying good morning, everybody, because I do my show at 7:30 in the morning, but it is in fact the evening today.
It is the evening. It is 8 o'clock. It's a little after 8 Eastern time, so it is a good evening. But the thing about this, and we got one person in chat already saying, no, the USA couldn't take on the world with China and Russia. We're going to get into this. We're going to have a little bit of fun with this. Chris, we won't give anything away. As a veteran, what do you think? What would be your first thoughts? Because we both watched this for the most part. What do you think? Could the USA defeat the rest of the world?
Yes. Undoubtedly. It's not even close. Even though we represent, such a small segment of the world's population, as a matter of military might, as a matter of military might alone, no. If it's just a question of is the army strong enough to do it, no. On just sheer strength of arms, then it's not up for debate. KS40FD is correct to bring up the sheer numbers. China, for example, is more than happy to use human wave tactics, which are very difficult to defeat in just armed conflict, just straight on the ground. Your pew-pews aren't going to do it by themselves. That said, our technological advantage is substantial. China does have drones, but they do not have the capacity or the experience with the deployment and use of those drones in armed conflict the way that the U.S. Army does. I first started hunting and killing terrorists with drones in 2010. And I mean, I'm retired now. My fleet of drones shoots pictures and video for real estate companies and young couples getting married for the first time today. But it wasn't all that long ago that, with little more than a video game controller, I was taking Taliban out of the battle space. Where we really shine, the United States, not the country, the physical land, our actual sovereign borders. We are a very effective natural fortress, and unlike any other country in the world, we are completely self-sustainable. While it is true that at present, we import a great deal of material like steel, weapons parts, manufactured machine parts, and the like. We do, in fact, have the capacity in the United States to produce all of those resources. And so we're essentially functionally immune to what would be national siege type tactics. Add to that. Go ahead. Oh, yeah, I could just pack the whole thing in right now, but let's.
I know that. But the thing about it, the rest of the world, and I'm not going to give anything away. If the United States takes one place out, if they took certain places out, the rest of the world would be lost at sea. That's all I'm going to say because I know this video. I've watched this video a few times. The thing with all of this, militarily, people-wise, KS is right. It is about 75-1. But, like BFM said, we have technological advantages over everyone else in the world. Why do you think China is trying to hack what we have? There's a reason behind all the theft from China. There's a reason.
Well, and before we get into the video, let me say this about the U.S. military. It's widely understood that nobody wants to get in conflict with the U.S. Army. Nobody wants to engage with us on the ground. And you can make arguments about our technology, about our armament, about our training, about our tactics. We do enjoy a wide gulf of military superiority over any other country on the planet. But the one thing, the key factor that really makes Americans terrifying to other militaries who know what they're dealing with is we love what we do. An American fighting man enjoys doing the work of conducting war. And I've done it myself, and I'm here to tell you, it is more fun than you should probably be allowed to have. You see, I've got my ammo can Christmas tree here. Now, you can buy ammo cans at a flea market or a gun show, whatever, and I have ammo cans that did not come to me the same way that these three did, but all three of those went from my fingertips into a magazine and into a firefight in Afghanistan. Those are cans that I emptied in active combat. That's why they're on the stage here. That's why they're part of my backdrop here, right? And I was stationed in Hawaii for a while. That's why I have a coconut monkey cup instead of a star on top of my ammo can Christmas tree.
But we are going to get into this. We will pause it I will pause this at certain parts. But the one thing I'm going to tell all of you, you're going to be surprised by the ending of this, because you have to think about it. BFM, what percentage of our GDP is put onto the military?
Oh, God. Oh, I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 20%.
No, it's about 3%.
Is that all?
GDP. That's it.
Oh, of GDP.
I'm GDP, yes. It's about 3% of our GDP. People, during World War II, during World War II, it was a lot higher than that. But let's get into this.
Superpower can be defined as a state with the ability to project power or exert influence on a global scale, usually in more than one region at a time. The United States has been the world's sole superpower since the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991, holding an unrivaled degree of economic and military dominance around the globe. Even today, with the rise of China, the US still remains by far the most powerful country, still far outstripping competitors in national power. It still has 3 times China's wealth, and 5 times its military capabilities. And that's not to mention its enormous advantages in geography, demographics, and more. All things considered, it doesn't seem likely that the US is losing its status as global hegemon anytime soon. But hypothetically, what would happen if America found itself in a conflict against the entire rest of the world? Would the country still have the power to achieve victory, or would it be worn down and defeated? Today, we'll take a closer look at these questions, with a USA versus the world wargame. First, it goes without saying that such a scenario is extremely unlikely, if not downright impossible, during our lifetimes. Because of its diplomatic and economic ties around the world, as well as its huge arsenal of nuclear weapons, the US has almost entirely removed the possibility of real war with Europe and many other countries. But playing out the remote possibility still shows us a lot about US power and how it might look in the coming years. For the purpose of this video, we'll exclude nuclear weapons and assume that such a conflict would break out after a period of heightened global tensions rather than as a surprise attack. So who would really matter?
That's the key question. If we did the nuclear, that's just destruction for the entire world.
Yeah, it's hardly even worth discussing the ramifications of nuclear war, because essentially you've got several nuclear powers. Of course, the three primaries are America, Russia, and China, with India to a lesser degree. But even if you just pick any two of the big three, US, Russia, and China, basically the whole global nuclear arsenal is on a sort of dead man's switch. So if anybody launches anything, then everybody launches everything, and we go into nuclear winter. The only way nukes get deployed, and that doesn't happen. And we're talking the intercontinental ballistic missiles. There's still room to have debate on the use of small tactical nukes in the field. You might get away with setting off one small tac nuke in a hot conflict without bringing the whole world down on you. But I wouldn't want to bet on it. And I don't think any of the powers that have that kind of technology want to make that bet either. So yeah, for the sake of the question of nuclear war, I don't see it happening.
I don't either.
KS4OFD, science has already said if nuclear war was to happen and everyone launches, the Earth would implode. Okay,
Yeah.
if everyone launches, then the Earth would implode. No, that's not quite how physics works. The Earth would not implode. What we would have would be nuclear winter, basically a long-lasting global massive dust cloud that turned us into one giant spherical polar ice cap.
BFM. No, what we would see is revelation. What we would see is, but we won't go there. We won't get into
I'll push back on you on that a little bit. We wouldn't see revelations, because you got to remember, part of what happens in Revelations is there are some people left behind.
That is very true.
Revelations requires survivors to stay here and suffer.
but let's continue.
Yes,
but
in fact, when God decides the world is to end, and he sends in the 4 horsemen, and revelations occurs, and people are raptured away, the total fatality rate will be lower than a global nuclear war. Nuclear war is worse than Revelations.
The biggest challenges to the US in terms of actual military capability would certainly be China. Western European nations would be a close second, as they are wealthy and have stockpiles of advanced weapons and technology. While Russia, once considered to be America's main military challenger, its invasion of Ukraine has made clear that the country is something of a paper tiger, especially if its nuclear stockpile is out of the equation. India is another potential player, with the world's largest population and substantial military hardware. Together, China, Russia, India, and Europe account for the majority of the world's military spending outside of the US. In our hypothetical, let's say these countries all align against the US, with the rest of the world primarily contributing materiel or financial support. While this is extremely simplified, the fact of the matter is that most countries do not have the resources to project power beyond their borders or immediate region, making an attack on the US impossible. So let's say war breaks out. The first major difficulty with the global offensive...
Hey, go ahead and pause it for a minute. Okay, so he's talking about power projection. We are not the only country in the world with a blue water navy, but we're damn near it. Basically, China.
But wouldn't you also say China and Australia?
No, Australia doesn't have a blue water navy. Well, they do very technically, but it's hardly worth even mentioning. It's just that small. China has the capability to field a blue water navy. They do have a blue water navy, but it is nowhere near what the U.S. Navy is capable of. KS4OFD says Australian Navy is part of the British Navy. Not exactly, sort of. That Australia kind of borrows its monarchy from the British, but they are, in fact, a sovereign state. So that's a little bit of
they're just like what's above the country above us, Canada. They're still technically under the crown. Technically, they're still under the crown.
Anarchy points out China can pump the ships out 30 times faster than we can because if they're cheap and fast manufacturing. That's true, yes, but funny thing about ships is they run on people. And China has a lot more people than we have, which is great if what you're trying to do is build mud huts or a rice paddy. But if you're trying to man and operate a technologically advanced, and please believe, even a cheap, junky Chinese ship, it's still a substantial piece of technologically advanced military hardware. You can't just throw bodies at it to make it work. It does require complex training and understanding of the equipment. Now that's not to say that the entire crew has to be that, right? You can fill the belly of a big boat up with a bunch of Marines that just know what flavor crayon they prefer. And as long as you can get the ship to go to point A from point B and dump those Marines out in human waves, that can be a very effective tactic. Now that's assuming you can get from China to the United States in a navy without being blown out of the water to begin with, and then you have to worry about being able to establish a beachhead in the U.S. The Chinese use wave tactics, or in the past they used wave tactics because while they had literally billions of soldiers, they did not have billions of firearms. They couldn't arm them all. So they'd hand out a handful of bullets to everybody, and you give the guns to the guys in the front, and you tell the rest of them, hey, your job is to pick up that gun and start shooting it when the guy that's shooting it now gets killed. And you shoot that gun until you die or run out of bullets. And when you run out of bullets, you hand it off to somebody who's got bullets and you die. Right? So Tommy Gunn says China runs very deep here in Canada. Yeah, there's a point that the video is going to make in a minute that I'm actually going to rebut because he's missing a piece of the equation precisely related to that Tommy says China runs very deep here in Canada. In the U.S. as well, the Chinese own a great deal of property. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get further into the video. Aaron, yes, this is live. I am talking to you right now. I just read your comment. Hi.
Against
How you doing,
US.
Aaron?
Yes, we are live. This is live. I got Mr. BFM that does his daily show at 7:30 Eastern every morning, Monday through Friday. Go check him out. Every weekday morning. He does not do it on Saturday or Sunday. He takes a couple of days off, like I've been doing for like the last month. But go check him out. He has a lot of great stuff. And my favorite part of his show is Firearms Fridays. Just saying, he does know his stuff. He does know his stuff. But yes, let's continue.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Would be geographic, surrounded by water on two sides, and Mexico and Canada to the north and south. Any physical attack against the US would face major challenges. First, it would mean mounting either an enormous amphibious assault from one of the coasts or attempting to invade via land. But the deserts in the southwest and the Great Lakes in the Midwest insulate the country's major population centers from a potential invasion staged from Canada and Mexico. An invasion from outside North America would require massive fronts and long supply chains across the Pacific or Atlantic Oceans, leading to a dramatic reduction of overall power projection. Military expert Dylan Lurk has noted that even the largest amphibious assault in history on either the west coast or the east coast would be too insignificant to acquire an effective beachhead. If every foreign power managed to coordinate such a massive operation, and do so while remaining undetected under the enormous reach and power of the American intelligence apparatus, it would still have issues building up a force of any significant size before being pushed back into the sea. In addition, the strategic Hawaiian island chain acts as a gateway to the US mainland for attacks from the Pacific, and is protected by a significant military presence. Similarly, military installations in Alaska provide protection against any invasion from along the Arctic or Northwest. An attack from
quick. Let me tell you about the military buffer zone in Hawaii. And this goes back to the thing about soldiers, about American soldiers. I worked with Kiwis, Aussies, frogs, Brits, everybody. While everybody was part of the NATO alliance while I was in Afghanistan, and those guys, they as Americans, we're not allowed to have alcohol when we're in Afghanistan. It's theoretically a dry country. Everybody else gets a booze limit, right? So the French, the Australians, etc. They're not sitting around getting shit faced, but they'll hang out with each other and drink a cold beer, drink a glass of wine, smoke cigarettes, chit chatting. You know what American soldiers do when they have downtime while they're deployed in an active war zone today? They play Call of Duty. They play combat simulator video games constantly. Right? One we'll call it morning. It was like 2:00 in the morning one morning. This young lieutenant came and knocked on the door and came in my chew and said, "Hey, Lowry, man, we've been playing COD Zombies all night and we're getting bored. You got anybody we can kill?" Right? Because I was the targets guy. It was my job to identify and eliminate strategic assets and command level assets of the local entrenched enemy. And we had a fantastic clear rate. And so this LT comes, "Hey, Lowry, we need some bad guys. We're tired of sitting on our asses pretending to kill bad guys. We need to go get some bad guys." And I said, "Yeah, no problem, LT. You go start some coffee and I'll put my pants on. We'll see what we can do." Had a blast. Got the bad guys. Good stuff. Now, I was stationed in Hawaii on Oahu at Schofield Barracks for many years. And you know what soldiers do in Hawaii? They they train, they run, they do PT, right? They go to the range, they do shoot houses. And then on the weekend, when they have leisure time, they go and play airsoft until they're tired. And then they go surfing and they go drink and party and do the nightlife thing. But they don't do the tourist thing. You know, they're living there for 2, 3, 4 years at a time. They do a little bit of the tourist thing when they first get there. Then they spend their time playing Call of Duty, doing Army training, and playing airsoft. The quote from that old film, The Golden Compass, the big armored bear comes in and he says, "War is the ocean I swim in." That's what's stationed in Hawaii. War is the ocean I swim in, right? That's why the enemy never wants to face the U.S. on the ground. That's why if you are a citizen of any other country in the world traveling abroad, you are less safe than if you are an American citizen, because kidnappers know that that every other country will just pay your ransom. You know, you kidnap a Brit, you kidnap a French guy, whatever, and you call the government and say, "Hey, we got one of your citizens, and these are our demands," and they just pay it because they want to get their people back safe. America, we will send the freaking airborne Rangers to fall on you and kill your children.
And the thing about it with all of this, they just don't realize how big of a
yeah. KS40FD. I'm just going to call you KS from now on. But KS makes a great point. He says they have to worry about rednecks and hillbillies, and I'll get to the rest of this in a minute. Okay, so right there.
But let's get a little further into that before we actually speak on that, because he does make a point. He makes a point with certain things.
Well, obviously we're gonna get more to that point a little bit. There's 120 guns for every 100 Americans. Right?
Yes,
but part of what KS just said, right? It's one thing. You're not gonna land a beachhead and then fight with any professional military in the world, or any coalition of professional militaries in the world, through the U.S. military plus a bunch of rednecks with more guns than your country has. You got to remember, a bunch of rednecks will straight up put kerosene in the yard sprinklers if it comes to it.
Oh, believe me, they're growing up on a farm. Believe me, I know things that I don't say, but let's continue.
Yeah, good. Our granddaddies remember punji traps. We ain't afraid to steal the enemy's weapons.
Oh.
Mexico would probably be more feasible due to the Great Lakes blocking much of the Canadian border. But California and Texas have the largest concentration of defense industries and military bases in the country, thus providing an effective deterrent from any attack. With the southwestern desert spanning the two regions, the Southwest is also home to multiple heavily armed military bases, such as the White Sands Missile Range in New Mexico or NORAD headquarters in Colorado. An attack launched from Canada on the Midwest or the West would be limited to light infantry and would likely fail to take over population centers or other important strategic points, since there is mostly rural farmland and unpopulated national parks along the border, along with air bases located hundreds of miles south. Dr. Beckley makes this point as well, stating that the United States is a natural economic hub and military fortress. It's packed with resources and has more economic arteries like navigable waterways and ports than the rest of the world combined. And even if the US military was unable to stop an invasion, the huge diversity of terrain would also provide US military personnel or militias with the ability to conduct guerrilla warfare. The US is also by far the most heavily armed civilian population in the world, with a staggering 120 guns for every 100 people.
So,
That's correct. The American civilian population, right? Not the United States as a country, including its military, blah, blah, blah. No. Just us, the American citizens, we own 43% of all the firearms on the planet.
And the thing about it, China has the biggest classified military in the world. But the thing about it, because of what we own here in the United States, we're the unofficial biggest military in the world.
Correct.
So don't mess. There's a reason during World War II, and I'm going to take this back to World War II. Japan's defense minister, I think it's defense minister or the war minister or whatever he was called at the time, said the reason they didn't come into the interior of the country was because behind every blade of grass there was a gun. And now it's even more today. And hello, Summer. Hope you're having a wonderful evening. But yes.
Yeah, so back a little bit, he was talking about how along our border with Canada, it's mostly open farmland or national forest type of land. Yo, my old man is an old retired veteran, and he bought himself a big old chunk of land, lives on a big old farm. He's not a farmer. He watches my show in the morning, and more than once, I've been doing my show at 7:30 in the morning. I see a couple of names I recognize in the chat here who have probably been watching when it happened. He's sitting on his back porch watching my show on his phone, drinking a cup of coffee, and then all of a sudden he drops in the chat, "I just got two." And what he means by "I just got two" is that without even getting up out of the chair that he's sitting on the deck, he picked up his 300 Win Mag and shot two deer at 300 meters that are at the corn feeder on the other side of his lake. Right? I just got two. Matter of fact, we just had some fantastic fried rice for dinner that came out of one of those that he killed a couple weeks ago. And at my house, I bought a good sized chunk of land out in the middle of nowhere too. You cannot approach my front door without giving me a football field worth of distance, which is a distance at which I have never missed a target.
And that's the thing about living out in the middle of nowhere. I do have people around me, but it's nice and quiet. I don't have to worry about things, and I know if someone's coming down the road way before they get here. If you don't,
it's 1 mile to my nearest neighbor.
I got people on each side of me.
It's 5 miles. It's 5 miles the other direction to the next nearest one.
I only have a third of an acre of where I'm at, but it's all farmland everywhere you look. So you have to walk a pretty good distance before you ever get to my door. But yeah.
Yeah, I've got cotton farms that way and corn farms that way. Be controversial. Hey, looks like you stumbled onto the random pop-up that I got invited to. I hope you enjoy this one. We're basically doing a reaction video tonight.
We are doing a reaction video, but it does bring up a lot of good points in it. Just think about 120 guns per 100 people. So an extra fifth of these people have an extra gun. So what's that tell you?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've got a wife and 4 kids. If shit goes wrong, everybody gets a gun.
There you go.
This means that even if a coalition of other countries was able to actually get troops into the US, it would end up facing an incredibly well-armed and pissed-off insurgency. On the other hand, over the past 80 years, the US has developed a worldwide infrastructure of military bases, supply lines, and the world's largest air and naval transport fleets. This contains hundreds of ships and aircraft, more than the entire fleet of most countries. The lack of global mobility would be an enormous issue for any coalition facing the US. In the weeks before the sort of global conflict in our hypothetical, the US would most likely pull its forces out of the most vulnerable, non-American bases in Europe, Asia, and the Pacific, concentrating its resources in places where the US exercises greater territorial control, to act as staging areas. Some areas would be considered too important to abandon, especially those supporting the military's supply chain, US oil assets, and key territorial choke points. One of the first battlefields in any conflict between the US and the rest of the world would be the Middle East. Here, one major aim of the DoD, as carried out by US Central Command, would be to secure critical US oil refineries and distribution centers, as well.
And the thing about this, there's a reason why this would be so, before all the troops are actually brought back, these would be destroyed. BFM, why would they destroy these oil fields in the Middle East? What would happen? What would happen to everybody else except us in the United States? What would happen to everybody else if these oil fields go up in smoke?
So let me throw you a little history lesson real quick. It wasn't all that long ago. It was just over 4 years ago, in fact, that we were energy independent in the United States because we were able to produce enough oil, natural gas, shale, fracking shale oil in the United States to not just meet our consumer requirements, but actually be exporting oil. So even in the case that we were to face a national embargo, or God forbid, the agglomerated powers of the world attempting what amounts to a land siege on the United States, we can produce the oil and refine it and produce the diesel and the gasoline needed to run our military machines. God's willing, Trump is working on pushing us back in that direction, refilling the national oil reserve and things of that nature. So we're in great shape moving in that direction. But just to give you an idea of the importance of fuel, it's not just availability, but correct management. I've heard more than one respectable scholar say the reason the world doesn't speak German is because Hitler chose to use gasoline instead of diesel in his tanks.
The thing this,
if the German Wehrmacht had been powered with diesel, we just might be sprechen Sie Deutsch.
I don't want to speak Deutsch. I don't want to speak that, even though I do know a little bit of it.
Brother, I had a philosophy professor back in the day that went and studied abroad in Germany, and he took he got himself a copy of Heidegger's Sein und Seits on being and time, and took it to a German Heidegger academic club to join. He was a kid, 22 years old kid, and he gets there and the Germans all laughed at him and they told him, nobody does Heidegger in German. It's because of all the long compound words. Heidegger's just much easier if you translate it to English first.
but let's get back into this, because he does explain the Middle East. If we take out everything,
we need to forget, just give up on solar and wind and focus full time on nuclear. Solar and wind, both solar and wind. We don't need to give up on them entirely. There needs to be a lot more technological development there, which I believe the free market will do. But as far as pushing them, the problem with solar and wind is right now, neither of them replaces their cost, right? If you put up solar panels, or you put up a wind turbine to produce energy, you're virtue signaling. You spend a little more on producing the equipment than you would spend on the energy, and then before they have paid for themselves in producing that so-called renewable energy, before they've paid for themselves, they require oil expensive maintenance to continue operating, or they just fail. So neither of them is is a great option. I'm sure they can be eventually, but the technology is just not there yet. They're not sufficiently efficient.
And Aaron's right.
Yep, storage is another major problem.
But let's get back into all of this because this is going to be interesting.
Well as gain control of the sea lanes used for transporting oil out of the region. As of 2022, 80.4% of the world's oil reserves are located in countries belonging to the international oil cartel OPEC, and 67.1% of OPEC reserves are in the Middle East. Similarly, over 60% of the world's oil passes through shipping lanes in the Arabian Sea alone. While the US has reduced its presence in the region in recent years, a global conflict would almost certainly cause a reorientation. Possessing the world's 12th largest oil reserves means that the US could theoretically go self-sufficient in wartime, but control of some Middle Eastern reserves would make guaranteeing its supply much easier. Similarly, it would allow the US to deny oil to much of the rest of the world, and undermine the coalition's economies and military production. Europe, which would represent the US's most significant adversary, receives a significant amount of its crude oil and natural gas from the Middle East. This means that US military control of the region would harm Europe's ability to sustain.
Okay, so he just mentioned the thing that I referred to, sort of. He said that because we have such a large oil reserve, 12th largest oil reserve in the world. Damn it, Danny! That's trying to sneak up and get ahead of me. 12th largest oil reserve in the world. Yes. In the event that we were facing the world basically declaring war on us, let's be clear. The scenario that the guy is presenting here, the world includes Canada and Mexico, which are contiguous to these United States. So part of our immediate military strategy would include taking control of the entire North American landmass. Mm-hmm. Right? There is no intelligible strategic scenario where if Canada and Mexico have decided to join in a cabal with the rest of the countries on the planet to invade and attack the United States, there's no scenario where we don't say, cool, you're mine now. We're done here. And even if that means that you have to, exterminate all Mexican and Canadians, because, one, you can't leave the enemy on the border like that, right? This scenario does necessarily include that Mexico and Canada have both declared military hostility and are therefore enemy and have to be dealt with, right? And for two, there's the sheer logistics of it. Canada has oil. And buddy, if the world wants to get in a fight with America, then yes, we will take your oil.
But I'm not sure about this, but doesn't Alaska alone have the 20th biggest oil reserves in the world? Doesn't just and I'm just
not sure
saying,
about that, but that sounds about right.
Just Alaska has the 20th. So that's not even counting Oklahoma and Texas and all of those places. Just Alaska alone. Alaska could be out on its own by itself with our military because of all the stuff that's up there. They could defend themselves and still be the 20th largest nation of oil. Yes. And
so Aaron's asking who's attacking the U.S. in this scenario. You missed it at the top. We explained, but the scenario assumes that every country on the planet has decided to go to war against the United States. Basically, the title says it all. It's the United States of America versus the world. And yes, we would wipe them out.
And Alaska has but this is why I love doing stuff like this. I'd seen this Sunday and I just thought maybe I can do this by myself, but I was like, I seen him Monday and I was like, maybe I need to have someone with me. But this is I love that I can actually do this with people.
Yeah, be controversial as a veteran too. Exactly. Y'all, I'm telling you, I have worked with some men that are truly terrifying. I mean,
but I love how
a lot of them will tell you that I'm one of them. That I'm one of those scary dudes. And I mean, back in the day, back in my prime, I'm old and busted and fat and cranky now. But
BFM, the thing about it, you don't want to mess with people like us. We're old, we're cranky, we're disabled, but we don't have that. We don't give it up. We don't care. We will do what we have to do. We're the wrong people to be messing with.
Yeah, to be fair, if you'd tried to start some shit in a bar with me when I was still on active duty, young, dumb, and full of piss and vinegar, I probably would have just gone for bar rule tactics. But y'all, I'm tired, and bullets are easier.
Yes, bullets are easy. But I love how where I pause it, we have one of our F-16s flying in the photo. Let's continue.
A war effort for any extended period of time. China would face a similar issue, as over half of all its oil comes from the Middle East, making the region among one of the most likely fronts in a global war with the US. At the start of the conflict, the US would first strike at oil-related facilities across the Middle East, using carrier-based strike aircraft plus medium and long-range ballistic missiles. US power projection means that even without bases in Afghanistan, the military could easily hit targets anywhere from the Mediterranean to the Strait of Hormuz. While regional powers could offer some resistance, none of them have anywhere close to the.
Now, he says regional powers could offer some resistance. That's not even true. So let me clear y'all up on that. We have seen the United States go into Afghanistan and various places in the Middle East and fight and deal with resistance forces. And you find that when you have an entrenched insurgent enemy who's dug into their home territory, they are very difficult to root out. But what we're talking about in this scenario is not that kind of war. You have to understand that, Afghanistan, everything we've done in the Middle East, we were the invading force, and we were there with the stated mission. Well, not that Obama or Bush were ever great about stating a mission, but in theory, we're there, change hearts and minds, fight the insurgent enemy, show, put the best foot forward, make a good impression on the local nationals, and teach them about democracy and freedom and prosperity, and show them that you don't have to be stupid illiterates in mud huts. You can be happy, free people, and all you have to do is do it. But that's when America comes to your country to fix it. I'm not saying that it's right or wrong to do the nation building thing for the purpose of this conversation. Personally, I'm not a fan of it. But my point is that in those cases, that's what we're doing. We're over there trying to nation build, right? You're dealing with an insurgent enemy, et cetera, et cetera. This that we're talking about here, this is a very different scenario. We're not interested here in improving your country or even taking control of your country. If the only thing that we're interested in strategically, because we are being attacked by the rest of the world, the only thing we're interested in is acquiring the resources that you have, please believe you cannot entrench sufficiently. I'll give you a very simple example. We ran into, well, I say we. I wasn't actually with the patrol when it happened. We had a patrol outside the wire get ambushed by about 3 guys. I say about 3 guys because it was difficult to count, later. Got ambushed by about 3 guys. Now, at the time, Barack Obama was the president, and he had these bizarre rules of engagement that prevented us from being able to use certain types of munitions because of the risk that it posed to the local food producing plants and agriculture. So we weren't allowed to just lob a bunch of 40 Mikes into the poppy field and blow it up to get rid of these 3 guys that were attacking. So since we weren't allowed to do it that way, what we did is we brought in 3 warthogs and let them fly over them 7 times and just perforate the field. Now, I guarantee you this, that particular poppy field was well aerated and well fertilized by the time those 3 warthogs finished doing their 7 runs. And, the world was at least 3 terrorists short that day. That's what happens when you don't have collateral damage to worry about. I have to be careful because there are some things that are actually still secret. But look, you remember the JDAMs? You remember when Trump dropped the JDAMs in Afghanistan?
I do.
Yeah. Those send a message. And, at the beginning of this video, he already said, for the sake of this conversation, for the sake of this scenario and this, intellectual exercise, we're just going to say that nuclear weapons are off the table. JDAMs are non-nuclear weapons. MOABs are non-nuclear weapons. And I'll tell you from experience, you wake up to a JDAM going off nearby, it is surprising. AC, are you familiar with, I'm sure you are you familiar with the concept of the Alice hole?
Yes.
That's when you're falling in a dream and you wake up and you feel like you just landed in bed. You have the physical sensation of impact from landing in bed. But a JDAM goes off within a quarter mile of where you're lying in a rack. You will actually wake up landing in your bunk. It's happened. I've had that experience. It's jarring. It's interesting. Was it fun? Well, it wasn't boring.
It wasn't boring. But with this exercise, people need to remember something. And me and Chris was talking about this before the show. Here in a little bit, you're going to realize something. Our actual defense budget is not really all that high. But let's continue with all of this.
Manpower or firepower needed to stop the US in an all-out war. While Israel, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and several others do have modern fighter jets and other weaponry, even they would not last very long up against the might of the DoD. And because each is an independent country, intelligence and resource sharing among them would also be limited, further reducing the region's ability to stand up to the US in a shooting war. Most of their assets' signals would also likely be jammed by America's powerful electronic warfare capabilities, which would disrupt enemy communications, targeting, and guidance systems across the region. The greatest threat to US control of the Middle East in our scenario comes from ground-based air defenses, as even older systems can shoot unsuspecting fighter jets from the sky. However, unlike Russia's recent experience in Ukraine, the US has actually proven that it can effectively destroy another nation's air defense network, as it did during Desert Storm in the 1990s. Today this might be even easier due to the enormous arsenal of drones the US has access to. Most US losses in the air would likely come from such drones, as well as fourth-generation jets like the F-15, while its more modern F-18s and F-22s could evade all but the best air defense systems. After establishing air superiority, the US would then work to control all choke points into and out of the region, especially the easily blocked Suez Canal, where over 12% of global trade passes through. If it was able to affect...
Now that is an interesting question.
I'm not going to comment on that.
All right. Just for this exercise, let's say they disabled them. Let's say every country that's ever bought a one of our planes. They disabled all of them just for this. But that's a heck of a question. That is a heck of a question to go down that road maybe in a later video, a later stream, we can go down that road. But that would be interesting. Cannot comment.
You'll have to do that one. You'll have to do that one. You'll have to do that one without me.
But I figured something you was gonna say something like that with that question. But it is an interesting question.
You know what? I ought to print out a copy of one of my NDAs and frame it and put it on the wall back there.
But let's continue with our little thought experiment in the Middle East, as we're still in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Effectively keep regional control over the Middle East and its resources, the US would have a decent shot at winning against the rest of the world. A second major battlefield would be the Pacific, where the US would probably use its fleet to keep China and other East Asian nations contained and stop them from attacking the West Coast. This could mean either a blockade of major trade and supply routes.
He said where the US would probably use its fleet. We have several.
Yeah, which fleet are you talking about? Which fleet are you talking about? We got one in Hawaii. We got one in Alaska. We got one. For crying out loud, if we have to call the one from Alaska, they can go down and help Hawaii. For crying out loud, we got one in the couple in the Atlantic, one in the Mediterranean, one near the China Sea. We got them everywhere. I mean, what fleet are you talking about? Are you talking about the second fleet, the ninth fleet? Which fleet are you talking about?
Okay, I had to look it up. I thought it was 7, but yeah, we currently have 7 active fleets. Yeah, we currently have 7 active fleets, and frankly, one of them would probably be enough to deal with China. But let me tell you, I don't think I'm breaking anything. Our general rule is 3-1. Right? We will. An American soldier generally can win a fight if he's outnumbered 3-1. But as a rule, when we plan on a maneuver, we plan on being 3-1. So, if my math is right, that means you're always facing 9 times the dick you were ready for.
Now, KS does have a good point, but you also have to realize something. There are still subs that are in private hands in the United States. So there's things that most people don't realize.
Yeah, you land in Hollywood, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Governor, will show up in his private tank. I mean, the guy's a bit of a commie, but
I forgot about the governor's private tank. But yes, there's a lot of things going on here. But
there's a great episode of the show Epic Mealtime, where Schwarzenegger shows up with his tank and they just park it in the sun and let it get hot so they can cook fried eggs on one of the armor plates.
But let's get back to which fleet is actually in Hawaii. Is that the 7th Fleet?
Oh.
Or is it third? Which one's in Hawaii?
10th Fleet at Meade, 7th Fleet at Yokosuka, 5th Fleet in Bahrain, 4th in Mayport, Florida, 3rd Fleet, 2nd Fleet. What the hell? It says
7 fleets in the Taiwan Straits. So it would probably be the 7th fleet that would be dealing with with China. But yes.
Yes.
More than likely, it would be the 7th in the Taiwan Straits. And this is a fun little exercise, but we'll go back to the fleet in Hawaii,
as well as using islands like Hawaii and Guam to stage its own offensives. It would also utilize its fleet of aircraft carriers heavily in the Asia-Pacific region. As of this video, there are 47 aircraft carriers around the world. The largest 11 of these are all nuclear-powered carriers belonging to the US, which have more than twice the combined total deck space of every other country combined. The Pacific Fleet fields 7 of these, and in a global war could use them to deny access to anything approaching the US mainland. Again, oil would be another top concern, and the US could use its massive navy to gain control of the Strait of Malacca, which carries up to 40% of the world's trade every year. While less easily choked off than the Suez Canal, a US blockade of this waterway would also devastate most economies in Asia, giving the US serious economic leverage over China, India, and others. The US would also likely exert its naval power in the South China Sea, which it could use to launch strikes against China, Japan, the Philippines, or any other regional power. Heavy fighting would ensue across the sea and air domains all around the South China Sea, and could account for the heaviest US casualties in any theater of this hypothetical war. Another potential target is
Taiwan.
Go ahead, pause
real quick before it gets into another potential target thing. Excuse me. So first, Grok says it's the 3rd Fleet and the 7th Fleet are commanded by Pacific Command, PACOM,
all right,
out of Oahu, out of Pearl Harbor. But they're both headquartered separately. 3rd Fleet, which is headquartered in San Diego, and 7th Fleet, which is headquartered. I lost my spot, but yeah. So there's 2 fleets that fall under Pacific Command. Now, to what he was talking about here, blocking out the Strait of Malacca, he said, and that would devastate the Asian economy. This is something that we probably should have touched on early on. It not just devastate the Asian economy. It's not just that, a blockade that would devastate the Asian economy. I talked about this a little bit on my show this morning, but and this is something I talk about often. The entire planet, every country in the world outside of the United States, exists currently solely at the pleasure of the United States economic activity. Mm-hmm. We are subsidizing the continued existence of every country on the planet. Now, that's not to say that people wouldn't survive in other countries and be able to, figure something out and move on with their lives if the U.S. was to pull out all their money. But in every country on the planet, they are getting so much out of the U.S., either in trade or in foreign aid or in partner deals, that their country, as they are constituted today, exists only because the U.S. is making that happen. And you've got basically 3 categories. You've got the big powers, Russia, China, right, where they do business with the U.S. and they receive some foreign aid, right? And so the bulk of their economy is based on trade with the U.S. Then you've got everybody else that's not a third world country. So our European allies, Australia, Canada, etc. They survive almost entirely because we subsidize their national defense. We foot the bill. Like most of the show this morning was about why Ukraine doesn't deserve a seat at the table for the peace talks in Ukraine and Russia, because we've been footing the bill. And it's time to say, look, Ukraine, if you want to keep being at war with Russia, that's on y'all. We're done paying the bill for you. Right? So, that's your second category, the ostensible allies who have their national defense subsidized by us, which is the only reason that they can afford to have socialized medicine and the like. And then finally, you've got the all the third world countries where you've basically got something akin to a military junta or a local gang leader, or like the cannibal gangs in Haiti, or the warlords with the child slave soldier armies around parts of Africa. All of those countries exist in their current format. They have that military junta, that warlord or whatever. That guy's in power because he's able to steal money from essentially by stealing foreign aid, right? You send in a bunch of medicine, a bunch of antibiotics or whatever. The warlord steals it and then sells it back to the local economy.
Yep. Or
he uses it to control the local economy. So yeah, anywhere you've got the warlords and guerrilla militia, that's the third category where it's done through corruption, graft, and theft, but their entire economic base is U.S. foreign aid. And a lot of that comes through the NGOs funded by USAID.
But
so when they say that if we cut off the Strait of Malacca, we would devastate the Asian economy, y'all, you declare war on the United States, we stop doing business with you. We don't need to do embargoes. You're done. You're broke. You're hungry, and we're not mailing you any more rice.
And the thing about it, he doesn't even get into the trade aspect of all this. That's the one thing that he does not talk about. The trade with the U.S. The U.S. does trade with everybody in the world. It might be $1 million, it might be 5 million, it might be $1 billion, but no one can actually shut us down from trade completely. But let's continue this. Let's Taiwan. And I think KS is right. I don't think Japan would actually join, but we could be wrong. This is a hypothetical too.
Where over 90% of the world's advanced microchips are currently fabricated. The US might even need to seize and try to occupy the island to stop the global coalition from dominating the production of modern electronics. To do so, the US would inevitably have to challenge China as well. Chinese air defenses and ballistic missile capabilities are already powerful alone, and if combined with the assets of every other country in the region, could potentially pose a problem for the US. The naval base on Guam would be especially vulnerable to strikes by ballistic missiles, which could overwhelm its limited air defenses. Even so, the US Navy is so powerful that every country in the East Pacific combined would be occupied with fending it off, and probably could not launch their own strikes on the US mainland. And because the US Navy is larger than those of the next 8 countries combined, it could easily fight.
Think about what he just said.
Yeah, I said earlier, China technically has a blue water navy. Okay, I use the term blue water navy. There's blue water navy, there's brown water navy, and there's green water navy. A brown water navy can basically patrol your shore. A green water navy can get a little further out and kind of touch international waters, right? A blue water navy is, no, we have these cities with guns that float, and we go wherever the hell we want, right?
Pretty much. And like Be Controversial said, don't duck with American boats. You don't duck with them.
He's making reference to the fat electrician who does military history videos, and he's done a couple. Guys, I'm telling you, the fat electrician, his video on the origin of the U.S. Navy and Admiral Decatur just going and poning the Middle East, just saying, you know what? Hey, look, there are pirates. I am interested. Everybody dies. Right, and the origin of the song of the Marine Corps song from from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. That is a reference to the birth of the American Navy, where we just said, yeah, no, we're not going to have it. You all die.
But
everybody dies. Everybody dies.
But KS brings up a good point. We're just playing Battleship, the game, with our Navy. That's all we're actually doing. I mean,
well, it's okay. So, and it's like you're playing Battleship, right? When you're going to war with the U.S. Navy, you have to understand that includes a piece of the U.S. intelligence apparatus. So when you go to war with the U.S. Navy, you're playing Battleship, except I'm 6.5 feet tall and you're 5 years old. I can see your side of the board.
That's true. But yes. And this is why it's so much fun getting to know different creators on YouTube and Rumble. We get to have a little bit of fun talking about our military prowess that we could, if nobody realizes, we already know the ending of this. You already know the ending, the way the guy is laying everything out. And he hasn't even came to the point where he talks about our GDP and our defense budget. That's an interesting little lesson, and that's coming soon.
In 2 or 3 theaters at once, making simultaneous blockades of Europe, the Middle East, and Asia Pacific a real possibility. Another aspect of a global war would involve submarines, which unsurprisingly the US has more of than almost anyone else. Its fleet contains 53 fast attack submarines, 14 nuclear-capable ballistic missile subs, and 4 guided missile subs. Even without using the world-ending nuclear capabilities of an Ohio-class submarine, this massive fleet would allow the US to launch stealth attacks on enemy naval vessels anywhere in the world, completely undetected. While America would be far more hard-pressed to fend off a global coalition on the ground, at sea, the US stands a much better chance of victory. A third global area of battle would be the Americas, where the US would have the greatest ability to marshal forces and project power. And because Mexico, Canada...
Now,
real quick, B Controversial says, as scary as we are, it's the information domain where we are spooky. And because I know that B is an Air Force vet, y'all, I used to play Magic the Gathering with Air Force spooks outside of secure facility when we were on lunch breaks and stuff. You ain't played a card game, my man, until you've played it with Air Force cyber spooks. It's mind-numbing. It's maddening. These are the kind of guys that grow up to be they grow up to learn the magic of augury, where you pluck the innards out of sheep and spin a magic ball to tell the future, so that they can be insurance adjusters and arbitrators.
But
Actuaries.
I want everyone, please listen to what's about to be said. Listen to something most people don't realize. Our defense budget, as of right now, is about $900 billion. Listen to what this man says, because we're coming back to the continental United States. Listen to what could happen very quickly if this actually does happen.
And other countries in the region are far less powerful, there is a good chance the US could blockade, control, or destroy the majority of their military and economic resources. Canada and Venezuela are both obvious targets because of their status as oil producers, and in a global war the US would probably aim to shut down or take control of resources in both. Another obvious target is the Panama Canal, which serves as the gateway between the Atlantic and Pacific, and where 40% of all US container shipping flows through. The US controlled the canal from 1903 to 1979, and would try to seize it again during a global war. This would also provide a choke point against the militaries of Central and South America. Chile is another potential target, as the country supplies 28% of the world's copper, critical for the production of modern electronics. Now, obviously, a hypothetical alliance of every other country in the world would have the numerical advantage in overall troops and economic resources. But keep in mind that as of 2022, US military spending was $877 billion, constituting 40% of the global total and more than the next 10 countries combined. Today, this enormous sum still only accounts for about 3% of the country's GDP. In a global war, this percentage would
3% of our GDP just for defense. Now, before you say anything, BFM, I want to play this a little bit longer. I want them to hear what percentage was used during World War II so we can go back to that time period.
Would almost certainly increase and could rise to similar levels as World War II, when US military spending accounted for over 40% of national GDP. Today,
people, we're at 3%. 3% of GDP is our military. If we're going through, if this is happening, if this happens, we still have the structures. The structures ain't gone. All they really would have to do is flip us all up. And we seen this during 2020. All they would have to do is flip a switch. And believe me, this is why.
And that's what happened in World War II is we flipped the switch. We said, okay, you're a car manufacturing company. You make tanks now. Oh, you make baby formula. Well, you've got the flipping conveyor belts that we need, buddy. You make bullets now. And by the way, all your husbands and sons and brothers are in uniform right now. So, ladies, it's time to take this pill to dry them titties up. You ain't got time to nurse no babies. You got to go pack munitions.
But this is why the United States, there are 330 million of us in this country. That's out of the census. The thing about it, if you come on our land, guess what? We're not going to be very easy on you. We're going to do what we have to do.
Yes. Rodemeyer says World War II production with 21st century capabilities. Exactly. We're talking about 700-ton tanks. That shit tanks. It's a tank, except the gun just shoots more tanks.
I mean, that's what people don't understand. This is why I love this video. This is the reason I wanted to show this. We're at 3% of GDP. 3% is our military budget. If we go up to 40, 50, 60, even 100% of GDP, the entire world is done. The world would be done.
Yeah.
But let's continue. And we also have something else that we're about to talk about. We can get people coast to coast without flying them. Just saying, there's a lot more to the United States than people realize.
That would mean somewhere close to $10 trillion a year in military spending from the US alone, nearly 5 times the global total from 2022. Astronomical numbers like these mean that a war of attrition against America would also be likely to fail, as the country could outspend the rest of the world several times over for many years. To gain a true strategic edge over the US, a global coalition would have to somehow outgun and outspend the Defense Department, while also maintaining their own smaller economies. Another crucial domain in a global conflict with the US would play out in cyberspace. This would probably be the first line of contact between the warring parties, as both sides would attempt to gain information superiority and take each other's systems offline. While US Cyber Command would almost certainly be overwhelmed with attacks by many actors at once, America could also use its own highly effective attacks to shut down enemy power grids, computer networks, weapons, electronics, and much more. And while it's not as dominant in cyberspace as in the real world, the US still has by far the most capable and best-funded capabilities in the world. In the 2024 fiscal year, US cyber spending will rise to more than $25 billion, and the country continues to top every ranking of national cyber power. However, this domain would also be one of the biggest dangers to the US in a global war, as cyber attacks are notoriously difficult to predict and defend against. A well-placed cyber attack by a less powerful nation could still be catastrophic, and would probably be a more serious immediate threat to US citizens than a kinetic strike on the country. However, again, we have no way of knowing how much American cyber spending would increase in a total war, or how quickly that would lead to new capabilities. All the elements point to a big conclusion. The US is so powerful that it could.
And just on the cyber front, those are things that are in the works or already done that most people don't know about. I'm just going to lay that out there.
Yeah.
There are things that we don't, that the American public
no comment.
does not know. We do not know what. I'll leave that one there, but people, this is why
there was a time when my job was to know when you were sleeping, to know when you're awake, to know where you sit
Santa
with
Claus?
your friends, and how you take your tea.
So you were Santa Claus, but
Ho, ho, ho. I was Santa Claus and the Kool-Aid Man all at the same time.
and Danny makes a good point. All I'm going to say is there's things that people don't know.
Yeah.
Take on the rest of the world for weeks or months with no certain winner. Because of this, such a hypothetical conflict would likely become a war of attrition in both the physical and digital worlds. The US would work to starve the world's other major powers of oil, war supplies, and other vital resources, while attempting to preserve its own. A true assault on the US mainland would be extremely difficult because of the country's size, geographic positioning, and incredibly well-armed military and civilian population. Because of the US military's global presence, most of the fighting would likely happen elsewhere, opening theaters of war everywhere from the Middle East to South America and East Asia. In the end, the victor would almost certainly be whichever side could outlast the other, both in terms of military and economic resources. While the scenario of America versus the entire world is obviously an absurd one, it does give us a useful picture of just how powerful the US military really is. With resources greater than those of most individual countries and nearly limitless power projection, even a conventional conflict against the US would be very, very hard to achieve true victory. Add in the country's continued dominance in cyberspace, and it's not all clear whether the rest of the world would actually be able to win such a war. And all of the speculation above excludes the most powerful part of the equation: nuclear weapons. Because of the principle of mutually assured destruction, no country really wants to use them today. However, it's worth noting that the US has over 1,400 actively deployed nukes, and in any real global conflict, they could be used to give any non-nuclear country a very permanent end. And even in a very distant hypothetical like the one above, we should remember that the cost of human life in any worldwide conflict would be staggering, and that even winners in such a war would suffer. But what do you think? Would the US really be able to win a war against the rest of the world? Or would the country eventually be overwhelmed? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more military content and analysis.
Yeah, quite frankly, he did. It's a great little piece of analysis. And at the end of the day, the key factor that he's missing, he's right about our essential economic, military, and strategic superiority over even the entire organized globe against us. But he missed the key point. Like I was saying before, American soldiers enjoy what we do, right? You cannot underestimate the level of brutality that an American soldier, an American warfighter, is willing to visit on the enemy. Because one of the pieces of this equation, we grow up watching comic book movies, military movies, reading comic books, reading Treasure Island, reading science fiction. We grew up on St. George and the Dragon, Sword in the Stone, King Arthur. We like to be good guys, and we like the idea of the good guys beating the bad guys.
We do.
In the Middle East, I've seen children brutalized and mutilated. I saw a home where they had a little boy about 8 or 9, I think he was, who had like Down syndrome, severe mental retardation. They just kept him on a chain in the front yard, right? People who have lived their whole lives in the United States. Now, obviously, you're not going to see that kind of madness in the UK, just out in the open like you do in the more barbaric parts of the world, like Africa, the Middle East, China, etc. But it's out there. It happens. And I tell you what, as a soldier, once you've taken a little girl to the medic to get her fingers bandaged up or her hands bandaged up where the stumps are left because some terrorist wanted to make a political point, your relationship with human suffering changes. It becomes a thing that has a place, and the place that it isn't correct, and you will feel a deep moral urge to correct the place that it's in.
Mm-hmm.
The brutality that a man who believes that he has righteous fury on his side, the brutality that he's capable of is the thing that you cannot imagine until you've either done it or at least seen it yourself. And that is a factor that this analyst has failed to take into his calculations.
BFM, I don't even think the American people, and I'm not even going to talk about the veterans and the active duty military. I'm just talking about everyday Americans. If you come after someone we love, especially most of us men, if you come after someone we love or our country, we don't care about ourselves. But when you come after someone we love, believe me, we know this. Everyone in this chat knows this. We're willing to do what it takes. If that means we have to do some evil things at the time, we'll do those evil things. We'll pray to God and ask for forgiveness afterward because we protect what we love. Most of us that are here, that are watching, that are here right now, we love our country. We don't like our government. We don't like the government, but we love our country. We love the men and women.
Like we did a whole segment on this. I think it was on Mario. Maybe it was Monday. Mario and I were talking about it on the show. I've seen a lot of videos like the guy that does Across the Pond, and British guy reacts to this and German guy reacts to that. I've seen a lot of those where one of the things that foreigners, that people who are not American, and this is everywhere, right? British, German, Ukrainian, Japanese, Korean. Well, the Japanese are probably a little more in line with us on this one, but they're surprised that we fly our flag. Mm-hmm. They're surprised that we have the American flag, right? That we fly the flag all over the place. We're proud of it, right? And this is one of the things, like when you're fighting American soldiers, if you are any other kind of soldier, you are in the army of your country. When you fight an American soldier, we love our country. The people of other countries don't. Not the way an American. Being American is a big deal. It's a much bigger deal than most Americans understand. when compared to what it means to people of other nations to be of their nation. It's just not as important to people outside of the United States, and they're critical of that. They think it's strange, but then you look at the situation, and we are being flooded with illegal immigrants. Y'all, you hear Trump talk about the number of illegal immigrants that come across the border, et cetera, et cetera. But to be clear, we've got a shitload of illegal immigrants here who came from first world countries and just overstayed a visa.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And now I'm not saying at all that they should be thought of in the same way or treated the same way as the hostile foreign invaders that flood across our north and south borders. But understand, everybody wants to be here. And there's just not room. Y'all need to clean y'all need to clean your own damn rooms, right?
That was Monday. I seen that video.
Yeah.
But this is the thing about it, and I'm going to open it up to let people come up here to give their thoughts on the video. But what KS said, this is the best country to live in, but our government could use better people in it. But the freedom here are the best in the world. There's a reason why people like BFM and all the people in the chat protected this country for as long as they did.
Yeah, our government really doesn't need better people in it so much as it needs less people in it. And we're moving in the right direction. Y'all know Trump just fired 6,700 IRS agents.
Hey, they should have. What he should have done is put them down on put them up on the northern border, because there's an illegal immigration. But I am going. If you guys want to come up and talk about this actual video or what we've been talking about, you're more than welcome. I will, because I want to get other people's opinions.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I mean, it's interesting to sit here and actually do this and let you guys come up. You're more than welcome. Anyone that comes up, but you need to show your face, because I do have, and I don't know if it went over on yours or not. If you want to put it in your chat.
Let me see. So yeah, while we're looking at that, let me just say, for the guys that are watching on my channel, basically what you're seeing, this is AC's show. This is AC's show, and I'm simulcasting it to my channels. So, Rodemeyer says there's no link there. So
I see.
No worries. I got this.
All right. But yes, this is why I love doing this.
Now, while you take a couple of those, AC, I'm gonna dip out for just a minute. I'm just gonna mute my camera, and I'll keep listening. I'll be right back with you.
Okay. Yes, what do you think, sir?
I just don't know how a global conflict could happen. Because you got the Geneva Convention, you have the UN, the Nuremberg Code, and several other doctrines that govern rules of engagement.
It's a hypothetical.
I know hypothetically, but would nobody follow the rules of engagement and use whatever, or would we still have to follow what the law is?
I don't. If it means an all-out war, I don't think anyone's really going to be doing the rules of engagement from the Geneva Convention.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at like World War I, World War II, that's when a lot of this stuff was created. So we had rules of what we could use, what we couldn't use, what's humane, what's inhumane.
but it is a good, it is a thought exercise to just think about what it, even in this scenario, it is that, and be controversial. You're right. North Korea doesn't need to reunite the Korean Peninsula. That's very true. But this is why I love doing stuff like this. Because this was earlier this week, I was like, yeah.
Because
And
like
Steve,
like the other guy said, the rules of engagement in Iraq were ridiculous. I talked to people that came back from Fort Carson with the fourth ID, and they were talking about the rules of engagement in Afghanistan and Iraq, saying they had to throw rocks first before they could shoot back at the enemy to try to scare them away.
Yeah. Now, while I was there, because of the capacity that I was there, I actually had a separate set of rules of engagement. I was very popular with the infantry units because when they were with me and my expensive loadout, we didn't have to follow the normal rules of engagement because of the nature of the sensitive equipment we carried. We got to treat it like, oh no, this is an active threat to actual national security, so everybody dies. So that was always good. But you brought up a great point. The possibility of a global conflict like this, where it's just everybody against the U.S., I promise you, the South Koreans and the Japanese are not going to give up on their American fried chicken and dairy products, right? South Korea, Korean women have the biggest breasts of any Asian group because they love American. They're all about chicken, fried chicken, ice cream and waffles, and cheese.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
So, the global conflict part, not even an issue. Now, as far as what you were mentioning about the Nuremberg and the Geneva Convention and all that, today, brother, let me tell you, today, America is the only country that gives a shit about the rules of engagement generally. I've known people from Canadian Special Forces that operated on quiet teams. And when I say quiet teams, I mean they did not carry a firearm. They went in with a garrote and a knife to do the work.
Oh, let me guess.
Nobody outside of the United States gives a shit about the Geneva Convention.
Mm-hmm.
So if it were to come to something like this, we would necessarily have to just say, you know what? Screw it. It's time to break out the MRE bombs and homemade chlorine gas. Let's just do this thing.
And the cluster bombs that Russia's been using against Ukraine.
I mean, isn't there a book called All's Fair in Love and War? Isn't there a phrase that goes, All's fair in love and war?
Oh,
Isn't that a phrase?
Oh, yeah. All of a sudden, all those rednecks you were talking about would be saying things like, Alexa, deploy the Claymore Roomba.
Yeah.
That's actually true.
Yeah.
That is actually true.
Yeah. Al-Qaeda didn't give a shit about the Geneva Convention.
Yeah.
But this and stuff like this, because what me and BFE get into about all the politics and all of that stuff like this is kind of fun to do because it is a hypothetical, but it shows you America, if we have to do what we have to do, no one can really stop us because we have our own food. We have our own gas. We have everything we need right here on the continental United States. And Alaska and Hawaii also have it. So and surrounded by water everywhere, it's kind of hard to do what they would have to do.
Yeah. I mean, really, the only way to truly get rid of America is just to nuke us. But they're not going to do that because they're going to want the land.
That is very true.
This is kind of like the macro version of sitting at a Waffle House with your buddies at 3:00 in the morning and saying, what would I do if somebody came through that door with a gun to rob this place? And I'm sitting here and I'm looking around. I'm like, oh, well, this coffee cup's kind of heavy. I could throw that. The sugar shaker's kind of heavy. I could throw that. I could hit him with that jukebox if I really had to. I know. I've seen me do it. You kind of war game that stuff, and as it turns out, I've actually been in a Waffle House that was being robbed and seen the shit go down, thrown a sugar pillar. See, y'all. Okay, there's this Waffle House that me and my buddies used to hang out at in the middle of the night, and this dude came in one night with a pistol. And he tried to stick up the Waffle House, and there was this dude working the grill, Leviathan St. John. And the man looks like you would expect a man with that name to look. He's it's like y'all remember one of the first viral internet videos, the dancing Viking?
Yes.
Right? Okay, so imagine this guy is behind the grill at a Waffle House. Somebody comes in with a revolver, says, "Give me all the money." He turns around with one of those little cast iron skillets that they do the scrambled eggs in, throws it, hits the dude in the face, jumps over the counter. Dude goes running out the door, grabs a high chair, chases the guy out the door, hits him with the high chair, subdues him, and holds him until the cops get there. Men can do shit like that because we sit around and talk about doing shit like that. It goes back to what I was talking about earlier, how American soldiers spend their time playing war games. And I do mean everything from Call of Duty to Total War. My boy Mario here is more a Total War guy than a Call of Duty guy.
I'm a Civilization guy, but yeah, Total War, I play that as well.
Yeah.
Oh, there's like a lot of them in Armor Reforged.
Yeah. But, I mean, the American man thinks about how to kill bad guys.
I know. I've sat around thinking about this. Like, why don't we, instead of putting these serial killers in prison, why not put them in the special forces and send them on these Black Ops missions?
Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
I had a similar theory. I think I remember talking about it to Chris, I think, while we're at DLI. This is our early years, us being in the Army. And I'm like, why don't we just take all like the retard schizos and criminally insane, just put them in a crate and give them like a handful of like hatchets and just drop them off in Afghanistan, drop them off in the hills, see what happens. Like, why not? Like, to solve two problems.
Yeah. I've always thought we could solve our whole prison problem if we were to take two great Earth products, two great products of the just total history of Earth, and put them together. That's gladiatorial arena combat and pay-per-view. Prison population and national debt solved.
So that's the capitalist in Chris. He just wants to monetize everything. See,
Hey, there's nothing wrong with monetizing things.
I am a devout capitalist. I live in the United States of capitalism, where the dollar is almighty God and possession are 9/10 of your commandments.
9/10 of it.
I was even thinking about that back when Afghanistan and Iraq was going on. It's like, why not take these murderers, the crazy people, ship them over there instead of shipping our soldiers? Let them go in there and just have at it.
Well, and hell, that's what most of the third world has done to us. A lot of the illegals coming across the borders are literally just South American countries emptying their prisons and busing them up to the Mexican border.
Yeah. And they're like, okay, if they survived over there, once they bring them back, and if they've changed, they no longer have to go back to prison. Give them a house and in the middle of nowhere, and fence it off.
You just look them in the eye and say, "Sauce for the goose, bitch."
That is actually a classic military strategy. Okay, that was common in the ancient world, where they would take the criminals and basically put them right on the vanguard. Okay.
Yep.
Arm them basically just with pikes and clubs. Okay. And be like, if you survive, you're free. Okay. You have one way to glory, and that's going to be right at the front edge of the enemy's steel weapons. And you know what? Do the best you can with the club. We don't care either way.
China. There were some documents leaked from Chinese intelligence, a plan that they had developed but had not yet implemented, going up toward the end of World War II. The plan was we're just going to send 1 million people to the Russian border to attack it, and they're going to surrender as soon as there's any conflict. They're just going to surrender, and the Russians will have no choice but to take them prisoner. Take them into a POW camp or a prison camp, and then the next day we'll send 1 million more, and then 1 million more.
Is this pre-Stalin Russia?
And we'll do that. We'll just do that every day.
Yeah, I mean, well,
for a month.
That's essentially. By the way, is my audio okay? It's a consistent problem for me. How am I sounding? Am I all right?
It's okay. It's okay. Just adjust your microphone up closer to your mouth.
I gotta find that.
There
happy
you
medium.
go. There you go.
There it is.
I gotta find that happy medium where you can hear me, but then again, not hear me breathing and sniffling and coughing and everything. Okay.
I
right.
actually have a present for you, Mario. I just have to send it to you.
Is that a lollipop? I like lollipops.
It's a microphone.
Oh,
it's a good
okay.
microphone.
Okay, lovely.
Oh, is that like a blue snowball?
Yep.
Well, right. So the basic principle here
that was a black snowball, but that's a joke for Mario.
Is getting rid of your excess population by sending them to a foreign country, whether you're sending them as combatants or whether you're sending them as basically like helpless irregulars that are going to tie up your enemy or your adversary's resources.
Right.
Okay, that's precisely what Mexico's been doing to us for 30 plus years. 25% of the population of Mexico resides in the United States. Okay, every single year it's like they pick through the bottom 10% of their society and send them right across the border. And it's a disgusting. It's not a Western practice. You're talking earlier about Western ideals, about the Faustian spirit, about the need to protect the innocent, okay, with your life, and to destroy the enemy with no quarter. That is a Western ideal. Basically, cowardly, subversive moves like just dumping excess populations on people. That is not a Western practice, nor has it ever been. And if your country, nation does shit like that, then you are not meant to be part of like the League of Nations that we call Western civilization. Anyway, I'll stop ranting. Go ahead.
No,
That's a good rank.
That's what I was about to say. That's a good rant. And the thing about it, what people don't realize, all of us are men. And we will do what we have to.
Did you just assume my gender? I'm sorry.
I would do something, but I'm going to behave myself. But the thing about it, what most people don't realize, even in these Eastern countries, we'll do what we have to. And even during the scenarios, when I watched it the very first time, I was like, this guy doesn't understand that we might not even have to get to the Middle East. Just block everything off. Put one of our fleets into the Sea of into the Cortez Sea and block everything off. There would be no getting in or out because we can do that. And
yeah,
we
like
just use the
earlier,
oil
we don't
itself.
even have to set up blockades. If
That's
we just
true.
stop doing trade with you, you're done.
Yeah, I mean, we did it to
Entire
Japan.
national economic strategy.
I mean, we did it to Japan in 41. And that's when they realized, oops, we screwed up. Please help us.
Yeah, well, we stopped sending them scrap metal and oil, and that necessitated them going on a terror-ass campaign through Indonesia, basically destroying and conquering any Dutch colonies that were there to basically get the basic oil resources that they needed. But yeah, the Japan lashed out irrationally, okay, as a result of losing the scrap metal supply that the United States was sending them.
And yeah, that didn't work out for them.
It did not.
But
give me a moment.
I do want to
I'll be right back. I fix
Legion
my hair.
and BFM. I want to show. I need to find it. This is. I want you guys to answer this. From Final Frontier, and this has been a while ago. Do you know what tungsten is?
Of course.
Really heavy, dense metal used for golf clubs.
Because this is what the person said. China owns it, and U.S. needs it. It's used to make weapons.
Tungsten?
Yes, that's what he's saying.
I don't know of any weapons that use tungsten.
Well, it's a safer penetration vehicle than depleted uranium. I'll say that. But yeah, it's probably used for the tips of ballistic weapons. It's extremely dense and you can punch through steel. And like I said,
Danny says it's in Greenland.
It doesn't turn half of Iraq into an irradiated wasteland like Gulf War 1 did. Poor bastards. Let me fix my hair. I haven't had a haircut in a year, guys. It's
now, in fairness, we did produce tungsten in the United States. We do still produce some tungsten in the U.S. We have dormant tungsten mines in like California, Nevada, a few other places. So if it came to that, tungsten is not the only metal to make ammunition out of, but it is a good option.
What about cobalt?
The only reason we don't currently have those levels of tungsten production, it's the same reason we don't have a lot of stuff in the U.S. right now, is basically government shenanigans, tax policy, and bad trade deals have offshored a lot of production. But the fact is, we still have the actual mines. We can mine steel. We can mine tungsten. We can mine just about everything here in the States. There are some things like we don't have active lithium mines that are easily reopened in the U.S. But that's cool because you know what? We're not going to be fighting a war with cyber tanks anytime soon. The technology's just not there on the energy storage side.
Yeah.
No.
And Aaron's right. We can invent a new metal to replace tungsten. For crying out loud, look what all the ingenuity just in the United States.
Yeah, because I thought tungsten, it's a strong metal, but it's also a weak metal at the same time.
It's dense, but it's also relatively soft. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So, but basically, you did like any kind of jacketed ballistic. You would take tungsten and then you would give it like a brass coating. Okay, like a coat, and that way you basically can fully direct the energy. Okay, the energy within that tungsten towards a pinpoint. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
so it's why you jacket lead. Okay, same principle. It's just tungsten's heavier than lead.
Yeah, but I love like tungsten rings because they're supposed to break away if you get them caught.
Mm-hmm.
Tungsten rings?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Right. So you guys were briefly mentioning warfare. Were you talking about basically modern warfare, like what you predict to see in future conflicts? And maybe
so you came in
strategies.
You came in pretty late in the show. We started at 8:00.
Right.
We were doing a reaction to this video that poses the hypothetical: what if the United States of America were suddenly at war with literally every other country on Earth?
Well, okay. First of all, you can rule out not every country has the ability to project power across either the Atlantic or the Pacific Ocean. So
we covered that.
Them out. Yeah. Okay. Got it. Well, then you know what? I'll just insert snippets here and there.
In fact, the vast majority of the countries on planet Earth do not have the ability, the resources, or the capability to project power outside of their own borders.
Yeah. The United States hasn't really had the greatest track record recently. Okay, and a lot of it comes to personnel management. All right, as far as projecting power abroad, okay, to secure objectives, okay,
right,
securing win conditions. Part of the problem is we don't do a very good job of actually defining what those win conditions are. Obama, anyone? But it's an entirely different story if someone's coming to the attack of the United States, as the Japanese ambassador clearly stated in 1941. Like, if you invade the United States, you're going to be facing. He looked at the wheat fields and he's like, oh, well, they got infinity food, and he's also looked at the Second Amendment, and he's like, okay, so there's a firearm behind every nook and cranny, waiting for any soldiers who foolish enough to step foot here.
Yeah.
The only
I don't
way.
know if you know this stat, Mario. We covered it earlier. The United States civilians, the U.S. civilian population. This does not include our military arsenals.
Yeah,
the U.S. civilian population owns 43% of all firearms on the planet.
Right. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, if the United States if our morale is strong, okay, or if we have even not even strong morale, if we have a sense of hope, which is all it takes, then you're fucked if you try to invade us. Okay. The only way any country could successfully invade the United States is if we had like a tyrannical, like lunatic or incompetent president, like let's say like President Biden, except it's President Biden for 20 years. Okay.
Right.
Then you could invade and conquer the United States, because the American people themselves would actually throw their lot in with the invader, as opposed to
But see, in that scenario, Legion, you're not even talking about the United States anymore. You're talking about a thing that is not.
It's a common thing.
You're talking about a thing that is as similar to what the United States is as an RNA injection is to a vaccine. It's not the same category of thing.
Right.
But it is interesting that people don't realize how big the United States actually is. Just the landmass itself. Because I know where BFM lives. I know where he's at. He's not too far. He's over on the next state across from me. So you can guess where I'm at. But that's the thing with all of this. This is what they don't realize is people love this country. Veterans will be willing to. I've heard a veteran say this many times over. Just because you're out of the service doesn't mean you go against your oath that you took when you went in.
No, yeah. The only part of the oath that expires is the follow the orders of the officers appointed above me. I'm a civilian now. I mean, I'm a veteran, but basically, when you get your DD 214, you've just been promoted to. I don't care how many stars you have on your shoulders, sir.
If I remember right, civilians still technically outrank any military official.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't have a salute anyone.
Sort of. You don't. When you get your DD 214, you don't suddenly have the authority to give orders to a 4-star general and expect him to follow them. But at the same time, he can't tell you what uniform to wear, where to show up, what activity. He can't give you orders anymore either.
No.
You do have authority over him to the extent that you have the power to petition your government for redress of grievances and vote for your representation and to select the commander-in-chief of the armed services.
Yep. Yeah, active duty military personnel, they don't have a Third Amendment, but civilians do.
Correct.
You can get your ass bivouacked wherever the hell we say you will. That's what it's going to be. Yeah.
But yeah, and Legion, I will, if you look into the description of my channel, the actual video is in there, even though I downloaded it. And this is the thing.
No,
Legion and BFM.
I'll throw the link in the.
No, I see your name.
My guys watching. I just put the link to that video in the infamous thread.
I'll subscribe and check out your catalog. Yeah.
But guys, in this scenario, if it was the United States versus the world, do you already have in the back of your mind what you would do? If it actually happened, if this scenario actually came true, that it was the United States versus the world, do you already have a plan in your head that you'll be like, yeah, we'll just wait for him here?
Yeah, I might. Well, I don't know. The community that I live in is very safe, but that's also because it's because of the age and the demographic of most of the people that I live with. Okay, I live in a golf course. That'll give you a clue. Okay,
Oh,
so I've got a lot of people who are patriots, but they're not exactly able. They're not going to be doing any fighting. Okay, but you know they can. They're really good for loot drops. No, I'm just kidding. No, what I would do. No, I don't know, man. I might contact the Florida National Guard and see if I could, see if I could chip in some way. But yeah, I mean, it is kind of a with in the United States, given the landmass, okay, the sheer size of the country, camping and sniping, it's really not a bad strategy, to be honest.
Correct.
One.
Where I'm at, man, honestly, if I just didn't happen to turn the TV on this week, I might not even know we were being invaded.
Yeah, man. News cycle's not slowing down. I mean,
Yeah. First thing I would do, get back to my cousin's house. So we can, like I said, he has stockpiles of ammo.
And hello, Miss Christie.
Second, then I'm grabbing some of his rifles, and then we're going to defend his farm and defend whoever else we need to defend.
And remember, if it gets too bad, we can always raid the American cheese reserve.
Oh my gosh, I like that cheese. I grew up on that cheese. It's like the best cheese. What's wrong with you? I'll take that cheese any day.
Cheese in a van down by the river.
Yeah, I know somebody who had to haul it.
Well, I ate it. I couldn't wait till we could go walk down and get that cheese.
Or at least that's what their bills said. That they ordered like local law enforcement if they got pulled over.
Christine, were you raised in a Tennessee Valley Authority labor camp or what?
No, I was not. I was born and raised in downtown St. Louis.
Oh goodness, you've seen war, my lady.
I have seen war. We were involved with war. My sister got shot in the head and lost an eye, but her life was saved. My sister got caught between two gangs, and they pulled up on the sidewalk and dragged her 7 houses down the road, and she survived it.
I served. For those who don't know, for who've never seen me before, I was a little bit of backstory. I was in the Army for 12 years. Okay, was in several units with Brush Fire Mind up there with Chris. Okay, so that's kind of like I do have a military background. Okay, and I served with a guy who.
We both went to basic combat training at Fort Leonard Wood.
Yeah.
Hey, Fort Lost in the Woods. I have a son that went there.
Absolutely.
I have a son that was six years in the Army and a son that was 12 years in the Navy.
I had I served with a soldier who was from St. Louis, who actually he was from like the Prospect Street area, I believe, in North St. Louis. He joined the Army because he said if I didn't join the Army, I'm probably going to die. He joined the Army because Iraq is safer than North St. Louis. No shit. That's why.
And there's truth to that, and it's still true to this day. I left when I was 18. Went back when I was about 27, and then I left again at 30, and I've been back once since then, and I'm 60.
You should maybe look just south of St. Louis, okay, in like the Ozarkia region.
We went there and spent the summers down in the Ozarks and the Hoozals.
That's a growing haven for our people. Yep.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Like North St. Louis. No, you run the red lights.
Well, but I was born and raised downtown St. Louis. I mean, there were gangs and shootings and rapes and you name it. It was there when I was growing up. Like I said, I'm 60 and my sister suffered probably the most. My brother was criminally insane, basically, and he got out and he died almost a year ago with a fentanyl overdose. So I always look at it, I'm the lucky one. I escaped, but I escaped because I never went back.
Yeah, I hated going to St. Louis.
Well,
But Christine, did you get to see the video?
I've been peeking in and out. I have my little miss here, so she was crabby and she took a late nap, and I just got her down, so I haven't really seen. I saw some of it.
But my question to you, because most of
China's
us
not going
already,
to help us.
but even in the scenario, China doesn't even help us.
No,
But what do you think? What do you think? Could the United States beat the
No.
entire world? You don't
No.
think so?
No, I know, no, because there are two countries that have EMPs. We do not have what they have. They're not going to attack us with boots on the ground or ships coming at first. They're going to take our banking, our electric. You know, you can't. You're not even going to be able to drive because that EMP is going to hit all those circuits in the cars. Unless you have an old one, it's going to totally, disable you in the middle of a road. You're not going to be able to get gas to the gas stations because you can't get them there because you can't drive. No.
Okay, what
That's how they're
countries
going
have
to start us.
EMPs? Because the only way I know of an EMP attack that would ever work, you got to launch a nuclear warhead 26 miles above the country you're wanting to attack.
No,
and detonate.
you are wrong. You are wrong. I have a brother-in-law who works with these things, and he said that he can program it here in the United States and send it over to Russia and get almost right on the target. I know this for a fact.
Well, to go back for a moment there, we were talking about China, okay, and China's relation to up in the event of like a global conflict, right? China probably wouldn't do anything, okay? Just like China's current strategy, okay, is to basically do nothing and win, okay? If you talk about nations, all right, when you talk about a nation, that nation also has a certain historical memory, okay, that's associated with it, all right? Young countries like the United States, for example, have a very short historical memory. As far as the average American is concerned, like our creation story probably began somewhere between 1939 and 1945, right? For China, China has the oldest historical memory of any civilization on the planet. So what they're looking at right now, when they look at Western civilization, is they see a rival civilization that is in fact self-imploding. So the smartest thing that they could do would be to profiteer off of what's going on, and then just wait it out. All right, and then they will be the masters of basically, the former third world and second world countries that are reclaiming the geopolitical stage. That's their strategy.
Yeah, Mario, you talking about the historical memory. I've got a cousin whose husband is from Slovakia.
Okay.
Right. And mom and dad took a hops flight over and did the East Europe tour a couple of years ago and went and met with his folks at a bar in near their hometown. And they're sitting there at the bar, and the old man starts laughing as they're drinking their beer, and dad asks him, what's so funny? He says, he's like, this bar is older than your country.
Yeah. I've traveled.
That's something that happens in Europe. I've seen bars like that in Spain. Churches like that. Hell, I went into a monastery in Toledo where the monks are carving these intricate dragons and angels and stuff out of marzipan, and the building was older than the United States.
Well, here's the thing, we're asking, could the world stand alone? Who's watching our back door and our side window?
No one.
That's a very good point. It doesn't, no matter what happens, right? Natural disasters like the rest of the world. I touched on this a little bit earlier, how the rest of the world exists at the pleasure of the United States because we fund the everything.
We do.
You've
But you know something?
seen in recent memory, you've seen natural disasters, tsunamis, earthquakes, the
Sure.
like, wipe out major population centers all over the world. And the United States is sending in the Navy, they're sending in hospital ships, they're
Sure.
sending in the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, they're sending our money over there to help them. When's the last time you saw a foreign country, any foreign power, any foreign country, even stroke a check for Helene victims, for Milton victims,
Well,
for the
you're
LA
not.
wildfire victims?
You can even look at NATO. Who is the most? Who contributes the most to NATO? With all the nations that are involved in NATO, the United States does like
Yep.
60% of it. And the sad thing is, and AC knows this about me. The sad thing is that the United States will help every single country, even if they get a stub toenail. But you know something? Our elderly, our veterans, and our poor get no help, and they're trying to take it more away on what we do have. Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox. And hi, by the way, I'm Christine.
Hi, Christine.
Hello, Christine. Well, what was it? What was it Elon Musk was talking about yesterday? How we spent
Which day and which time?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's fine. Anyway,
Just asking.
the point is, like you're saying, we spent like $5.7 billion towards some insane project in like the Balkans, trying to raise LGBT awareness. And I think Elon stated for that exact amount of money, you could have housed every homeless veteran in the country or something like that.
But do you know something? Here's what my big point is. And I mean, I can go to Elon, and I'm telling you, I have been trying to keep up with what Elon and Trump is doing, and I can't. Every time I think I find something, it's like, what the hell? But let's look at the Balkans, and let's look at some of these other countries where they are doing gender identity and LGBTQ and transitioning and things like that. They're spending all this money, but do you know something? That's been going on for so long. I remember reading about the study that they were doing on the LGBTQ in another country using our money. I remember there was a big, huge thing about it years ago, and nobody did or said anything then. Nobody.
A lot of the world, much of the world, particularly the Western world, is in turmoil right now. Okay, because taking the axe right to these to USAID and to the other NGO funding programs right within the U.S. government has really basically taken a chunk out of the wallets of a lot of these organizations that run subversive propaganda and run basically culture war against the countries in which they are embedded. Okay.
Well, now Mario, you're getting into our show for tomorrow morning.
Yeah, hey, you're getting a sneak peek, people.
There you go, sneak preview. And a lot of with that money drying up, you're seeing a lot of irrational behavior coming from a lot of these people who never thought that that cash cow would be turned off. I mean, what we're talking about, like $4.7 trillion in wasted funds.
Right.
Okay.
And the thing is, but here's my question. Marjorie Taylor Greene at the congressional hearings the other day, oh my God, she was so accurate. And I don't care for the woman. I really, truly don't. But listening to these congressional hearings that I've been listening to this week, especially about the Doge, she stated that Americans are paying their taxes at gunpoint. She said those words. Well, damn it, I'm a victim. What are you doing with all this money that you're not sending to other countries? Is each American going to get their money back? No.
No, because if they take that money, no matter how exorbitant the sum, and if they spend it abroad, then it doesn't directly affect the markets in the United States, which means that it doesn't cause a mass inflation effect. If you started spending all that money that we're sending abroad, printing out of thin air, and then sending it to whatever cause, whether just or unjustified, okay, it's not directly affecting it's not directly affecting inflation in the United States. If you spent all that money in the United States, you would see the price of eggs at $30, even though everybody's getting more money. Look what happened during COVID when they started sending out the checks, right?
Do you know I didn't get a single
Yeah,
penny?
you didn't get. Well,
I didn't get a single penny.
Neither did I. Are you white perchance?
I am,
Yeah, exactly. So,
but I didn't get a single penny. And you know what? I lost my job during that time. You know why?
What state were you living in during COVID?
Florida.
In Florida. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
before.
I'm in Florida as well.
Oh, where at? What part? You don't have to tell me the city or just north.
Are you trying to dox me, madam?
No, I promise. I'm in Northeast Florida.
So am I. Okay. Yes.
Oh my gosh, you're probably my neighbor.
I'm 386. Okay.
Okay. I'm 904, but I'm right on the border of 386.
I know where you are. Okay. Perfect.
Bringing people together in Florida.
That's funny, is it? But
386 almost sounds like an Italian phone number.
Right? But before our governor said that you can't force people, my employer demanded it and gave me a date to be forced.
Do you work in the healthcare industry?
I was ER trauma.
Yep, exactly.
And you know what? I worked ER trauma for months and months with this, and I didn't catch anything.
I've got a cousin who just got married a couple months ago. He and his wife are both ER travel nurses. And
yeah, that's a tough job.
I've built paper mills, oil refineries. I've been to war. I've seen people get hurt and die bad, nasty deaths. And I've got several good friends who are ER, surgeons, doctors, trauma nurses over the years I've talked to. And a lot of those stories are similar. They see the other end of what Mario and I have seen.
Yeah. Yeah. And they talk about PTSD and our veterans and those that have served, but I'm going to tell you something. I honestly have as much PTSD as any veteran.
I have no doubt. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But ER, if you work in an emergency room, if you're an emergency medical technician, yes, you see the exact same things, if not worse than what you would see in a war zone. Particularly because in the civilian world, you're going to see a lot of horrible things that happen to children. Now, I know Lowry's different. Lowry saw some of the horrible cultural practices of Afghan culture. Okay.
Well, I saw a lot of the.
You're going to see that. You're going to see that constantly. Absolutely.
And I agree with you. And I worked in Minneapolis at the trauma center there, Hennepin County. Yep. And then I worked at the children's hospital there. I was involved with female mutilation.
Oh, Somalis doing a clitorectomy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep. I was involved in that. I worked in Halifax.
Mm-hmm.
And say I was exposed to that rather than involved in that.
Yeah. Well, I was exposed, but how my involvement is that we took it up to the Supreme Court, and I was part of that because of what was happening, and they were using it under the guise of religion. Mm-hmm. But in the United States, no.
And if you don't understand what happened, and you show up to the scene and it's like a little baby Somali girl and she's bleeding uncontrollably from her vagina, what's the first thing? The first thing come to your mind, what the fuck is going on here? What the hell?
I cannot tell you daily how this was happening, and it was happening not by even medical professionals. It was their belief, their religion, their priest, pastor, leader, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
did it
done by Musa al-Farouk with a fucking kitchen knife. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get you.
In a kitchen. I swear to you, in a kitchen, because we used to have to transfer these kids, because my second job, because I've always worked 2 jobs, we used to have to transfer from the smaller hospital via helicopter or by ambulance, and they always had to have a pediatric nurse, which was me, to go with them. And what we would see
my God.
I just can't explain it to you.
So, Christine, would it be a stretch for me to assume that diversity is in fact not our strength?
I don't know. I don't know. That's a tough question.
Oh, we haven't even gotten to the crisis of competency on the BFM in several weeks now. But with all the airline crashes we've seen lately, we're going to have that conversation sooner rather than later.
But do you know
another one today in Arizona?
Yes, there was. But okay, so I'm going to explain something here. And Mr. 386, he probably hears about it at least once a month too. We just had one in a county that isn't too far from me. Destination unknown. You have a small aircraft. They had a destination unknown. They were allowed to fly. The only reason they were able to find this crash and the victims was because people saw it go down. I live in between a municipal airport. I am not far from another municipal airport, and I'm not far from from Jacksonville Airport. Okay, I guarantee you, once a month, for as long as I can remember, these little planes went down. Now, the difference I see are we have some larger planes come down. That's the problem. But I guarantee you, there are approximately, and don't hold me to this number, but I know, give or take 20% either way. I know that there are 100 planes in the United States that go down annually. Guarantee you. If anybody would Google it, I guarantee you.
Yeah.
How many?
But I was thinking about that.
At 100, I wouldn't be surprised.
Because, okay.
Private crafts mostly, but yeah.
Yeah.
Back during the pandemic, they were taking people that were playing like Gran Turismo, iRacing, and throwing them in actual race cars, doing competitions to put them in actual race cars. I'm wondering if these damn airlines ain't doing the same thing with Microsoft Flight Simulator.
And they very well could be. And do you know, like here in Florida, let's just say, for an example, a 16-year-old, well, actually at 15, 14 and a half, they can start studying. At 15, they can take their driver's test. Do you know you take that all online, and then when you're ready to drive, you make an appointment and go drive? That's all you do. And I'll be honest, I helped one of my grandchildren who failed it, and she had one more time to be able to pass it. And I sat there with her and I said, don't answer a question until you tell me the answer first, and then we'll put it in. It was cheating. So she didn't know the rules of the road, but guess what? She has a driver's license.
Wow.
So real quick, according to Grok, on average, annually, about 0.007% of aircraft in the U.S. crash. And now that sounds very, very safe. And it is,
Sure.
Rule of large numbers. But that 0.007% is out of roughly 45,000 daily flights. Right. 16.5 million per year. And so you're right, the average is about 1,200 crashes per year. And the average number of airplane crashes involving a fatality is around 150.
See, I wasn't too far off, but if you look at that percentage, and if they would break it down to what type of aircrafts, are they corporate aircrafts, are they personal aircrafts, or are they major airlines?
Right, and those numbers that I just gave you, that's total of all aircraft that crashed in some capacity.
Right. And the thing is, though, you got to remember, and you can hear it weekly. If you really actually looked, you'll hear it weekly of the near misses or takeoff aborted. And, they're adding that stuff in there, too.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at getting a pilot's license, I don't know about commercial. They may go a little more in depth. So I've been looking at getting a pilot's license. You self-attest to your mental status.
Well, sorry. My
I'm not. I don't want that.
My grandchild's other grandparent, he has a jet, And he just hires this like Tom, Dick, or Harry to fly him around. And it's like, well, we're going to go down to the Bahamas for the week. You want to go? I'm like, how you getting there? Well, we're going to take the jet. They have this company where you can get these traveling pilots. I'm like, oh, hell no. I ain't getting in a plane heading across the water to an island. Are you stupid? Right?
That's. I think I got the perfect thing sitting in the back here. 2KS's thing.
A bullshit? A bullshit? A bullshit. A bullshit.
My granddaughter, bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, I could go spend $50,000, go to flight school, go get my pilot's license, attest to the FAA that I'm mentally sound to have a pilot's license. They'll issue the pilot license for a small aircraft. I don't know what the commercial, if they go make you actually do psych evals for commercial, but like your personal aircraft, you self-attest to it.
Yeah. And hey, if you're getting ready to do all that, I'll tell you what, I'm a licensed drone pilot. I fly drones commercially, and to get the Part 107 for commercial drone operation, you take the same written test as the private pilot's license test. It's the same written test. Obviously, I don't have to get the hours. I don't have to do the whole boat. But let me throw you a pro tip before you go take that test, brother. Invest in a magnifying glass, because a big part of that test is they take the sectional charts. Right, it's like a real estate plat that lays out the location and airspace delineation for all the local airports around whatever section of the sectional chart it covers. Well, a sectional chart is a big ass piece of paper, right?
Sure.
It's a great big huge document. It's like a flipping sheet of plywood, and but for the test, you get them in a workbook where they've shrunk them down to the size of 2 standard college rule notebook pages, and you've got to try and read that. I've got pretty good eyes, even, I wear glasses now, but I didn't until well after I was out of the Army. And I failed the test the first time I took it. I 1 point short of passing the test. I went back a week later and retook it with a $7 magnifying glass I bought at Walmart, and walked away with almost 100%. I think I missed one question.
Yeah.
Before you take that test, brother.
I mean, if I'm going to fly, I'm going to get me a real good gaming PC, gaming monitor, and just play Flight Simulator.
That's right. Do you know, and I want think about this. Just think about this. In almost every profession that has other people's lives in their hands, we have dummied those down. We have dummied the tests down. We have dummied the certifications down. And in my opinion, we have a lot of incompetent people that have other humans' lives in their hands. And not only that, the shortages, and I'm talking about shortages of pilots and air traffic controllers and doctors, and I mean, there's shortages everywhere. And in order to compensate, they're overworking them. And especially in the corporate world, you have X number of time with this, and you have X number of time with that. You have X number to get it here. Well, like these pilots, they know they're on a schedule. And if they are late or delayed, that in turn delays another one. And they take a ding on that. And so where do you go from there when we've dummied everybody down, we've dummied all the certifications down, and we're okay with every profession that has a human life in their hands to be incompetent?
Well, you can get through flight school faster and cheaper if you just tell the instructor that you don't need to learn how to land the plane. You know what I mean? It's just getting it up in the
Right. Yeah. Once you get it up, it's covered. Don't worry about it.
I probably could get any plane up in the air. It's just trying to figure all the switches out.
Oh, it flies by itself. Don't worry about it. Just put it on autopilot.
Oh, for crying
Oh yeah,
out!
they auto land. They are the only thing you really have to do anymore is just take the thing off. Other than that, put autopilot on and then just hit the auto land button. It'll land.
I know about 2 years ago, it was shortly after the virus was flying around. We had, for air traffic controllers, we had only 75% of the positions filled. There were still 25% of the positions that were not filled. And you can't have one air traffic controller. What this one is doing should normally take two. But because of the shortages, they didn't care. They don't care.
Did you guys? Yeah.
And even what you're talking about there, the crash up by DC last week,
Mhm.
they pointed out that there was one air traffic controller handling fixed wing aircraft and rotor wing helicopters, and
And
that's
you can't do
normally
that.
supposed to be done by two people, but they didn't have the coverage for
Are
it.
you guys aware
BFF.
that Joe Biden's FAA turned down 5,000 qualified applicants for flight control positions simply because they were white?
Okay,
Yeah,
I have a
realize
question
that?
with that. Okay, time out. I'm a fact person. Okay, because we're being told that I want, and you have one person. Well, I didn't get hired, and I'm qualified. Well, I want to see what their qualifications are, and I actually want to see that these applicants were just put aside because they were white, or they were interviewed and weren't hired. Just because somebody tells me that, I don't believe that.
Right. Well, that's what I read. But the bottom line is that DEI basically intentionally removed qualified candidates from a pool. Okay, in an industry that needs qualified positions filled. So that is undeniable.
Well, and I will tell you, I honestly feel when all this DEI went into play, I did not get a type of position I wanted, even though I was female. I was not the right color. And the sad thing is that technically I look white, but my mother was full-blooded Hispanic. So I could technically write on there Hispanic because I am 50% Hispanic. So, and maybe I should have. And I will tell you that my children have been told to put down Hispanic now, because it has what it is. So they'll put white and Hispanic. I have a biracial grandson, and he's always put white. I said, absolutely not. You put white, other, black. What you do. And it's sad that we have come to this because color should not be a factor.
Oh hell, I piss everybody off on applications. I mark every damn race on it. Plus,
Right?
and I write in human race.
But the thing about it,
I just don't fill out applications.
With the
I just be
DC,
retired.
Right? Be controversial.
crash, guys, with the DC crash, what we found out, they actually sent somebody home. They let somebody go home right before that crash.
You know why, right?
Because they said they were sick or tired or something.
Well, that's what they're claiming, but I guarantee you they already had their hours in and they didn't want a ding. Just saying. And what ended up happening,
because I heard it was because the air traffic died down where one traffic controller handled all of it.
but I don't know how they can say it died down. I will be honest with you. How can they say it died down when you have a manifest of planes throughout that region? And DC's a hub. My son, every other week, flies through DC, LaGuardia, or Charlotte. Every single week, he is on 6 different planes. Or every other week, he's on 6 different planes.
Yeah, we're not talking about the dinner shift at Ruby Tuesdays where Say, oh, well, it's Tuesday night. It's kind of slow. You go ahead and start doing your prep work. No, it's not like the schedule's unpublished.
Right. They have a schedule. They have a manifest. They know where these flights are coming, or should know, should I say, where they're coming from, where they're going, how many people, the list of people, and nobody paid attention. But as an air traffic controller, you can only work so many hours. So if you're working at only 75% capacity and your flights haven't decreased 75% capacity, how many are working over what is required by federal law?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, those are questions that need to be answered, in my opinion.
And you're right about that. And
no, that was like a couple of weeks ago. We had an issue with our ambulances. They had more calls than we had ambulances in service.
Well, I mean, we started talking about racism there for a minute, and I just wanted to, I wanted to talk about, like, I took my racism game to the next level. I no longer discriminate against color. I discriminate based on haplogroup. Okay, so if you're not R1b, I'm an R1b supremacist.
I'm going to tell you something.
That one might have to be clipped up there, or BFF.
I have,
Kristen, you don't know me. I have a twisted sense of humor. Okay.
Oh, so do I. Ask AC, don't I, AC? I have a very twisted sense.
Me and Christine, I love the woman, but me and her will go at it from time to time.
Yeah, we don't agree on a lot.
No, we don't. But I do appreciate you coming up here and joining the conversation, because I don't normally do that. I don't normally put the link out to people so they can come up.
I appreciate you did that.
But
yep.
But I am going to say this, as Mr. BFM usually says, I think I'm going to put a pin in this. I do appreciate everyone coming. Everyone, and I'll start with the one that came here last and work my way to BFM. Your final thoughts on the things that you got to see, what we've talked about, even within this little bit of the last hour. Christine, your final thoughts for tonight.
My final thoughts is don't just read. Look for the facts. Are they putting out receipts? And that's what I'm looking for. You have to find the receipts to these things. There you go.
All right.
Legion.
As far as attacking the United States, like what the original premise of the show, pretty much unachievable for a conventional military power. As Abraham Lincoln stated, if the United States is to fall, it's going to fall. It's going to be basically fall internally. Okay, from a house divided.
Yeah.
And that's it.
KS.
I don't think anybody could attack us, honestly. Would the U.S. go after every other country? Probably not. Not unless we had allies. Which the only allies I could see that would actually probably back us in a global conflict would be Israel and Japan. But other than that, I think we'd still be outnumbered.
It's also the quality of the troop. I mean, human capital in the United States is on the decline. Okay, maybe if RFK Jr. and the HHS gets everything he wants, then maybe we will actually have a solid generation of able-bodied young men. Okay, who would be able to wage a global war. But as of right now, the United States population is not capable of such a venture.
Oh yeah, if we can abolish seed oils and soy milk.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I like soy milk and almond milk.
Chad generation.
Yeah, but soy milk and almond, or I don't know about almond. I know soy is high in estrogen.
Well, it's high in phytoestrogenic compounds that
Correct.
cause the
Yeah.
masculine
That
body to
mimic.
produce estrogen.
They mimic estrogen. Exactly.
It breaks it down. Yes.
So yeah, it's fine for the ladies. But brother, if you're trying to rack up and get swole, you need to get you a cow titty. No little bean titties for you. You need the real deal.
And I will shout
I've
this
got
out.
nipples, Greg. Can you milk me?
But go, if you're on my channel, please go and subscribe to Mr. Brushfire Mind. His links are in the chat. They are pinned to the top on YouTube and on Rumble. And for my final thought, I don't think anyone really wants to F around like that, because I think the world is finding out what it really means to F around with the United States. So, like KS said, I don't think any country will ever try to do a land invasion. Air might be a different story, but I still think they would be taken down because a lot of our fighter jets are still the best in the world. So, with that being said, I hope everyone has a wonderful night, and please remember to be good to one another, because we are in this together, no matter if you're left, right, or center. I will see you guys tomorrow morning for a judiciary hearing about fentanyl. Until then, night, everybody.
I'll be listening to that one.
All right.
Oh, I'm definitely going to watch that.